So I talk a lot on this channel about the fact that I really enjoy cheaper and more affordable guitars. I think they can have a lot of potential with the right modifications, and these don't necessarily have to be hard or expensive. So I figured I'd take you along for the process while I make some upgrades to this guitar. This was originally a Lion by Washburn Strat style guitar that I picked up pretty cheap on Facebook Marketplace. It was originally black and I got it with the intention of painting it this blue color. And something that stood out to me on this was that it had a spoke wheel adjustment truss rod, which is not something you see on a lot of more affordable guitars like this. But anyways, I had picked this guitar up a couple years ago and redone the paint. And at the time I put back all the original hardware on it. Recently I was sort of taking inventory of some spare parts I'd laying around and figured this would be a nice guitar to get playing more reliably. The first thing I'm doing here is upgrading the bridge. The major issue with the original one was that the block was pretty thin and made of soft material, and it had a screw-in style arm, which aren't the best. The springs were also pretty worn out, making it not hold tunes super great. I'm putting on this Wilkinson branded bridge, which all in all is not too expensive of a bridge, but will improve the usability of this quite a bit. And I'm of course replacing the springs here and the claw, which despite looking kind of worn had no real issues. While I'm in this area, the next thing I'm doing is taking off the pickguard, and I'm patching all the screw holes with toothpicks and just a dab of super glue. The wood on this body is pretty soft, and this just ensures that when I put the pickguard back on, these screws are nice and secure. While I set that aside and wait for it to dry, I'm going to continue disassembling the pickguard here. The pickups and electronics all still worked fine on this guitar. They were of course on the cheaper side though. I'll actually be replacing them here with another budget option. I pulled these particular pickups out of a Strat style guitar I got for review recently, and I actually thought they sounded pretty alright, so I'll be using them here. I am putting all the components back in the original pickguard here because it has that cutout for the truss rod adjustment, and that's not really something I want to try to cut out of another pickguard. But anyways, when that's all said and done, I'm putting the pickguard back on the guitar here. When that was all said and done, I moved along to the tuners. These definitely did have some issues. These had a fair amount of play in them, and this guitar was not the easiest thing to get in tune. I'll be replacing these with another cheaper pair of closed back tuners that I had as spare parts. They're nothing fancy, but they do work a lot better. Before I do that though, I'm going to be doing a similar technique and patching the holes on the back of the headstock here with toothpicks. The original tuners had 2 holes where the new ones only need 1. I'm also swapping out the string trees while I'm up here. The ones I'm replacing it with have just a tiny little bend in them, meaning the strings don't actually make contact with the edges of the string trees. Your strings binding on anything in general can actually be a pretty major source of tuning issues, so this is going to be a pretty good upgrade. I'm also swapping out the plastic nut with a bone one. I was able to lift the old nut out with some pliers. This footage is sped up, but I just want to point out that I went pretty slowly here. Breaking the old nut will just make it harder to remove, and you definitely don't want to chip any of the wood around it. I'm using a pre-cut nut for the replacement, which usually come pretty close to what you need. This particular one was just a tad too thick, so I filed it down to size, which again is not too hard. I just want to emphasize go slow and check often. Once that was all said and done, I was able to get the new tuners back in this guitar, and then I quickly tidied up. I also attached the output jack here, and then I went ahead and cleaned this up and got some new strings on it. Because this is an open pore rosewood styled fretboard, I'm using a lemon oil here to condition it. I put this on pretty generously and rub it on with a rag. During this process I also did a pass over the frets with a super high grit sanding pad, which gives the frets just a little bit of an extra shine. And I'll be honest, if this was a nicer guitar I would have used fret guards or taped off the fretboard, or if it was finished you'd want to do this. But anyways, new strings are on this guitar. I got it tuned up, and then here I'm going back and soldering on the grounding lead to the back of the tremolo. I'm doing this step here frankly because I forgot to do it before, and with all that said and done, the guitar can go back to its spot on the wall. This is going to be a fun and reliable player for when we're hanging around the house.